Yo, what's going on? I'm Pat Jr.
I'm Jay Pelham.
And together, of course, we form Pelham and Jr.
Yes, sir. So today we're actually going to take some time to talk about how we made the sample that was used on the song called Offline from Hit Boy and Dom Kennedy's latest project, also known as...
Yes, sir. So back in 2018, when Pelham and Jr. was making its first year run, this is after Neo Gotham, after Mellow Hues, we wanted to start diving into some different genres in our sound design and our sample design. And so many of you don't know that I serve as the creative director for Pelham and Jr. All the packs that you guys see come out, I come up with the schemes and ideas and the branding and the sound, or at least the blueprint for the sound of the packs that come out. And so around this time, it was getting into what the world, or some of the world, knows as cuffing season.
Yes. Yes.
And so around this time, a lot of music that comes out, I think it was maybe September, October, around that time, you hear a lot of R&B artists come out with modernized, or should I say trap, soul sounding R&B music. And so we wanted to create a sample pack that kind of echoed that kind of matched that sound. And I just had it in my head yo, let's make a cuffing season pack. And we called it Curfew Hours. So the first Curfew Hours that we came out with, there was a sample on there that Hit Boy actually used for Kalani's Nunya. So after, of course, Hit Boy used something from Curfew Hours 1. We hit him up and it was like, hey, that beat you made was pretty fire.
Right.
And so then, we just kind of began the relationship there. Just, kind of communicating, going back and forth. And so the following year, we decided we wanted to go ahead and, make another, Curfew Hours, the sequel of Curfew Hours 2. So in the process of making Curfew Hours 2, one of the samples we took and we set it to the side specifically for Hit Boy, because we knew that he enjoyed Curfew Hours 1. I actually think he used another sample from Curfew Hours 1 for Big Sean, for one of the records he did.
The
Overtime record. That's right, yeah. So we knew that he liked that sound that we created, and so we ended up just setting it to the side and what, became known as Offline, the sample for Offline.
So from there, we set it to the side, and I think, like Pat said, it was probably around September, August when Curfew Hours 2 came out. In October, we actually took a trip to LA. And so that's where we, Curfew Hours 2 had already came out. And so for Curfew Hours 1, we had a male vocalist on there. So for Curfew Hours 2, we really wanted to change it up a little bit. So we wanted a female vocalist with a silky vocal tone that would really kind of, really sound good on samples and stuff. So that's where Sianka comes in. So during the process of recording, we actually had her, basically vocalize, sing a melody in the sample. And then when we went to LA, that's when we presented it to Hit Boy, and he was like, "It's fire."
Yeah.
So, and then a few months later, he had already made, actually a few minutes later, we was in the studio with him, and we go in there, he already turned that joint into something crazy. So, and then it was a few months after that when we found out that, it was going on, him and Dom's album, also known as, and that was just, it was a cool moment.
Yeah,
for sure.
Super dope.
So now I guess we're gonna dive into the actual sample so we can show you guys how we actually put it together. And I think you might be surprised at how simple it actually is, but it doesn't have to be more complicated to be dope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for this particular sample, or just for the Curfew Hours series, I had told JP that we should do a couple of samples that emulate that sample sound that some of these tracks use in modern day music. A lot of the tracks that you may hear from, well, not all of them, not a lot of them, but some of the tracks, select tracks that you hear from Drake, from Party Next Door, even Big Sean and Janine Aiko did a project together, and it was a track called Deja Vu, where Cam Obi emulated those 90s R&B harmonies. And so that gave me the idea to, make a sample like that where the harmonies that have that 90s R&B feel are the main show of the actual track. And so, from then on, I passed that idea over to JP. And what'd you do with that, bro?
Yeah. So, so if Pat, if his role is more of a creative director, then my role is that of a musical director. So he'll say, hey, we want this feeling, we want this texture, we want this vibe. So my job is to try to, put together a composition, a melody, a chord structure so that we can get that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so we wanted to have the vocals be the primary instrument, so to speak, for this sample. And that's really, we do that a lot in Curfew Hours. Like that's one of the hallmarks of the Curfew Hours series, is that the vocals are the primary instrument a lot of the time. And so with this one, we just started with like a simple melody, and I can kind of play that melody real quick on the keys, and then we'll actually show how we had Sianka actually but sing that chord structure, and then how we kind of turned that into a whole sample. So for this one, I just came up with a simple chord progression. So I'll play it on the keys. And so I basically just recorded those chords out into the session. And when Sianka came in, essentially what we did was every note in that progression, she would sing each of those. I had her sing each of those notes. And then we kind of put them all together so that they became this harmony. And then just to kind of accent some of the spaces, we had her sing little accents, yeah. So I had to kind of sing like little things like that in between. And then once we put it all together and just kind of threw the sauce and stuff like that, it came out fire.
Yeah. So in the session, JP mentioned having a chord progression. We started off with, and I'll mute these for the time being, with a pad.
You probably crank it up.
And then we added a bass line. Okay. So, and if you notice, that wasn't the same key. What we did was we actually had to transpose that, that key down, right?
Yeah, because a part of the creative process was we had, and we'll play it, we actually had her sing what I played, but then sometimes like we may not like the key that it's in, or if we're going for like a sampled vibe or a sampled texture, we'll actually pitch vocals down to give it that sampled vibe. And then once we're happy with that, then we'll just kind of, we'll transpose or move other elements around it to support that.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And that's part of that sound where the producers that make these trap soul or trap R&B, like they pitch the samples from these 90 R&B like songs down. Most of the time you don't really hear them pitched up. A lot of them are pitched down to give it that real wavy, like vibey, like slow effect. So this is the full harmony that we had Sianka sing.
Ooh,
And then, of course, JP mentioned those accents in there, right?
Kind of add to the sprinkling a little soul to it.
Okay, and so then, of course, to get that sample vibe that we were talking about, we developed a chain that we have, and you guys get to see that chain, a little bit of sauce, which composed of just things that me and, plugins that me and JP like to use that we just kind of put together to build that sound. And I actually think this is one of the same chains from Curfew Hours 1.
Yeah, we just saved it from the last one.
We just saved it, and that's a producer tip. If you're using Logic or even Ableton, I believe you can do the same thing.
Yeah, you do it in just about any DAW.
Any DAW. Like if you create a really dope chain, save it, and reuse it, and then you can go back in and adjust it. And I believe that we did adjust this chain and kind of enhance it or make it better,
Right.
So it's a vocal chain that we created, a process chain. We have Iron Oxide, which is from Air Windows, really dope. All free plugins, you should check them out. We have the stock EQ here. Let's see, what is this? RC retro color. People use
everybody
that.
Using it for lo-fi.
Valhalla, Ubermod, and then of course one of the very key players is the pitch. Where we pitched it down. And so what I'll do is I'll progressively kind of add everything in here just so you can hear how the sound changes. Here comes the pitch. Then we added the Clef Grand DAW LP, which gives it more of a vintage feel, that vinyl feel.
Subtle, but vintage vinyl.
Yeah, it kind of crunches it a little bit, Then we added Valhalla.
Just some reverb.
Shimmer, some reverb. And then one of our favorite plugins, Shaper Box, we added that just to give it like a bounce to it.
You probably can't even tell, like.
Yeah, it's really subtle.
Yeah.
And then of course, lastly, Wave Spectre, which is our harmonics.
It's harmonic EQ.
EQ, where you can add some distortion, and it's an exciter as well. And then to bring some of those highs back in.
That's most of the work. The rest was just
adding those little
just adding the rest of the chords,
bass
and bass line. And that's it.
So I mean I shouted to Hit Boy before we went to LA, and he was just like, yo, this is hard, this is fire. So we tracked that mug out when we got there. Like JP said, like we went off into another room, was doing something. We came back maybe 30 minutes or so later, and the beat was just fire, man.
Already,
it was fire. It was crazy. So yeah,
and that's pretty much it. So as you can see, it's not a super complicated sample, but I think all the ingredients that went into it definitely made it dope. And then of course Hit Boy took it and he knocked it out of the park and turned it into something even doper.
Something crazy. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. hit the notification bell. We will be doing more videos like this in the future with samples that may or may have not got a placement, just to show you guys, you know, some of our process that you might take into your own if you're doing sound design, or if you just want to get inspired from what we do. The links are in the description for our social media. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and make sure the links are in the description as well for this too. If you're into this kind of sound, go cop Curfew Hours 1 and 2. There might be a Curfew Hours 3 this year. Peace.